Good evening. This is an introduction to a series of videos on how to use a Singer SB-100 knitting machine, and somebody very kindly actually dropped a comment on an earlier video of mine saying, well, you said you'd show us how to use it and you actually didn't, you just started whiffling on about the jumper. And I thought, yeah, actually that is a good point. I have a series of videos sitting in my phone that I haven't actually edited at all. So as an apology to this gentleman, and hopefully some help for I think it's his wife who's just dug one out of the loft. Welcome to the first video of this. You'll see I'm wearing a different jumper in this video because I made that jumper on the knitting machine. So enjoy. Hello. Now, I realised on the video I'm about to show you, I didn't show you how to set this thing up. So the first thing you do is obviously get out of the box, fit the carriage if it isn't already on. It should already be on. If it's not, it just slides on. You move this over here. Just slides on like this. And then it's adjusted using these little screwy things here and here. Also, if it's old, if it's been used but it's been sitting somewhere and it hasn't been all wrapped up, it's worth getting some sewing machine oil. And if you're going to oil it, I'll show you where to put the oil. So you just need to run a little bit of oil around here and also along the top of the needles here. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, after you've found a suitable surface for it, is to put on these clamps. Because I tried to use this, I thought, I don't need clamps, don't be silly. You definitely need the clamps. It will just go everywhere if you don't. What's that caught on? Tip it forward. See, on either side there are these little slots, and these screw in like so. Basically as tight as you can get them. That's that one, because I'm going to pause it while I do the others. Right. These are the two main tools that this thing comes with. There's an eyelet tool. I'm just doing a closer up because I know I go into these tools a bit later. At least I think I do. There's an eyelet tool that you can use for transferring stitches when you're casting off. And this is a very handy little hook. And on the other side, there's a latch hook, which you can use for picking up dropped stitches. And believe me, this thing loves to drop stitches. Boom! Hi there. Hopefully this is coming out okay. I wanted to do a short series of tutorials on how to use this Singer SB-100 knitting machine. Now, this is a UK model of knitting machine, and what I found since I bought this, I did do a couple of videos about this particular knitting machine when I bought it in March, and what I found was there's very little information out there about using a knitting machine like this. One of the first things you'll notice about the SB-100 is that it's really, really, really basic. So I bought this off a guy. I bought it out the back of a van and it was in perfect condition. It was basically new old stock. It had never been taken out of the box. And a lot of fancy knitting machines, they need a lot of work doing to them. That wasn't the case here. It was fine straight away. These also, they don't have a sponge bar. Underneath here is just plastic. There is no sponge bar, no need to replace it when you get one. The manual, which I'll drop a link to the PDF in the video description. The manual is really, really confusing. It's, I think, really badly explained, the manual. And so I'm not a huge fan of it. I honestly just abandoned this and worked it all out for myself. So in the interest of future people who might lay the hands on a Singer SB-100. I want to do a series of basic tutorials about how to use this thing. So the first thing you're going to need to do is buy more weights, because the SB-100 just comes with these two. And that's the first thing I learned, was that you need additional weights. So I've got this comb weight. I've made some additional weights just with batteries and duct tape. I need to make some more of those. So that's the first thing. Before you do anything else, go on eBay or wherever you want and buy some more knitting machine weights, as many as you possibly can. So once you've done that, come back to me. Now, this is the carriage. As you can see here, goes back and forth. I've actually oiled this quite recently. You'll definitely need some sewing machine oil. This is the tension wheel. So, turn it for tension. It claims that this machine will knit Aran worsted weight yarn. It absolutely will not. The heaviest weight it will go, it will just about do DK, but it's quite a lot of work to pass the carriage over DK yarn. Underneath here there's some brushes, there's these little knobs that you can use to kind of free it when it gets stuck. Now, very importantly, if you push this in, I'll show you what happens. So this is the little knob. So I'm going to use this, it comes with this. I'm going to lay out 20 stitches, 20 needles rather, not 20 stitches. Boop. So this line here is called the working position. So this is where the needles will usually be. If the button at the top is pressed in, it will return those to what it calls working position 1. And if you do that when you've got your knitting on here, it will also pull the knitting straight off. So you need to push it in for most things. Now I'm going to go through casting on. And the first thing to do when casting on is to read through the instructions on how to cast on, and then throw that away, because those instructions made 0 sense and just never seem to work. So I use this. So because on the previous video the camera's a bit far away, so it wasn't very clear what I was doing. So I have re-recorded the cast on here to show you a bit closer up exactly what is happening. So what's happening is there's 2 ends of the yarn, and you're wrapping first one end over the first needle and then the other end over the second. You're twisting it underneath and you go through all of the needles like that. Make sure you don't miss any of them, because it's very annoying when you do. Now, the casting on method in the manual makes absolutely 0 sense, and I could never get that to work. This is a method I found online that other machine knitters use, and I have not had any problems with this particular method. So I recommend that you use this one and not the one in the manual, which is completely incomprehensible. Now, anyway, here are my hands, and what I'm waving around here, I'm trying to communicate through the means of wiggling my fingers in a moment, is you need to make sure that the latches on all the hooks on the needles are open, which you can do by running your finger along the hooks, but do it really carefully, because these things can catch in your fingers and it's very painful, and there is an awful lot of blood when you do that. Here I am, I'm back. You need to check that all of these little gates here are open, so the hook is present. If you can see it from my little finger here, be careful with the hooks. If you catch them on your finger, they can make a real mess of your hand. So you can catch yourself on these, and surprisingly enough, they are quite sharp and nasty. So be careful. As to whether the nicer, more commercial knitting machines do the same thing, I don't know if that's also a problem. It probably is. Okay. Sorry, I had a huge chunk of fluff on the inside of my glasses. And so I'm going to lay the long part of the yarn over my needles like so. And I've set my tension to 5. I might turn it down. I think you're supposed to have the tension a bit higher, lower when you're casting on. So I'm going to do that. So it's at 3 and the button is pushed in here. I'm going to check that and I'm going to bring it across the needle like so. Oh, actually, that's fine. Just going to correct that at that end. And that's effectively, I have knitted my first row. So as you can see, you should be able to see that in passing it over, a couple of the gates have closed. So I'm just going to flip those open. If you have a lot of these that are closed, I just run a knitting needle along and flip them open in one go. Also, you need to check that the yarn is behind each one of these needle gates. Otherwise, either the stitch is going to slip off or it's going to split. It's going to split the yarn. Now, the next step is put the weights on because this thing needs so much weighing down. Again, this is the only knitting machine I've owned. I did have a circular Addy for a while, and I wish I'd known this about weight when I had that. That's not supposed to happen. Hook it on, and you might think it looks like these claws are going to destroy your knitting straight away. I want to reassure you that that isn't going to happen. Don't worry. Right, I'm just going to true up this. You don't need to do this after every row. It's just when you start out. And so we're going to go back, yarn over the needles, and I'm going to bring my carriage over like this. There we are. Now I have knitted 2 rows and we can just keep going like this. So I'm going to go 3, 4. This needle needs replacing, that's why it jams there. I do have one, I should replace it. 5. That's my fluff. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay. I'll pop these weights off. Here's my knitting, and I'm going to pop the carriage in at the back and take this off to show you. I think I've caught in there. Okay. So hopefully that's clear. You can see I've done 10 rows at 5 gauge, whatever that's called, I don't really know. And I can just keep going with that and have a very long, very curly strip. So another thing to bear in mind with these is that there is no ribbing attachment. In another video, I will talk to you about how to do a mock rib or a welt, a hem basically. And I'll also show you how to do things like casting off, increases and decreases. And if we're having fun, then I'll try and do things like intarsia as well. Okay, so that is lesson 1 on how to use the Singer SB-100 extremely basic knitting machine. If you're wondering what yarn this is, it's I've just dropped it. It's Drops Flora. Drops Flora, so it's wool and alpaca mix, and this is probably what I'm going to use for the rest of it because I've got a little bit to use up, and why not use it to show how to use this thing. Okay, bye bye.